A month ago, I made a wager to hold a giveaway for a limited edition Nerdaties hat. All someone had to do is email in and win the hat, plus a dozen cinnamon rolls from Sinful Creations by Justin. I was even promised a gourmet dinner cooked by Justin for my wife and I if someone emailed in. We have thousands of listeners. The odds were in my favor. If losing, though, if nobody enters the giveaway, I reluctantly must renounce two of my favorite franchises, James Bond and Star Trek, which means I no longer can talk about them on the podcast. I put my faith in our loyal listeners and thought that such a simple task for them would be easy. I was wrong. My love for James Bond films started when I was around 10 years old, when I saw my first Bond film, Goldfinger. From the opening scene, I was hooked. There was something about watching Sean Connery infiltrate a villain's factory, set a bomb, remove his wetsuit to reveal a tuxedo with that white jacket and red boutonniere. He was so cool. I made it a point to watch all the James Bond films, including the two that are not canon, Casino Royale from 1967 and 1983's Never Say Never Again, and even read all the books, which are very different from the films. And even I watched, what? And even watched James Bond's first appearance in Casino Royale from 1954's episode of Climax, where James Bond was an American CIA agent and Peter Lorre played Le Chiffre. I was lucky enough that at that time, on me getting into the franchise, Pierce Brosnan was starting his run as 007. I got to see the action on the big screen. From the opening gun barrel sequence to the final fight on the satellite dish, I was invested in every frame. As time passed, I became a walking Bond encyclopedia, having done research and watched documentaries on the character, the author, and the making of the films. I loved to talk about each actor's take on the character, from Connery to Craig, how Timothy Dalton played the closest to how Ian Fleming wrote the character. James Bond was everything I wanted to be. He was suave, smooth, sophisticated, and he always got the girl. It was everything to a short, skinny introvert with a huge imagination. He was everything I wasn't. Star Trek has been a part of my life as far back as I can remember. It was one of those shows my dad and I would make it a point to watch every week. As a young boy, seeing Captain Picard and the crew of the Enterprise go on their adventures was everything to me. I remember when my dad got a Laserdisc player, we watched the original films together. The bug scene in Wrath of Khan scared the shit out of me. I watched them so much I was able to quote the lines. I remember in 3rd grade, my mom made me the uniform from the movies, the Monster Maroons, as they're known in the Trek world. I thought it was the coolest. I had my Playmates communicator phaser hooked on my belt. It made me so happy. The first time I saw a Star Trek movie in the theater was Star Trek Generations. I even shed a tear when Kirk died. That was about the time I went to my first Star Trek convention, where I saw Scotty himself, James Doohan, in person. It was so cool. I remember watching Worf on Deep Space Nine, thinking how cool it was seeing this character back on another series. My dad and I being hooked on the Dominion War when the station got taken over by Cardassians, watching every bit of that story unfold. We watched Voyager battle the Borg, the Kazons, and everything the Delta Quadrant threw at them on their voyage back home. I can remember getting the Star Trek encyclopedia for the computer and learning everything about everything Trek. I am still a huge Trek nerd. I amassed a huge collection of action figures over the years when I was younger. I thought they were the coolest, and I had most of the crew, the aliens, the variations, the different uniforms. I was such a Trek nerd. My friend Matt and I, whose collection rivaled mine, we would imagine the toy characters going on the greatest of adventures. What I still think about and love the most, even to this day, many years later, I can still nerd out with my dad about Star Trek. Talking to him about the latest episode of Picard, going over the odds and ends about each episode. This season of Picard was really special to me. It took me back to that feeling I had as a child, watching them with the same awe and wonder. So now it's come to this. My hope in our fans, my positivity to our listeners who have let me down. You broke my heart, but I still love you. My renouncement of my fandoms on the show. No more talk about the future of the James Bond franchise. Which actor would take the reins of the role? No more talk of the Bond girls, Bond villains. No more updates on Star Trek Lower Decks, Strange New Worlds, and the upcoming Section 31 movie. Or hopes of a Star Trek Legacy series. Or the amazing work that Otoy and the Roddenberry archives have and continue to do. But off the show, I will continue to be a loyal fan of these franchises that will never cease. I will always be following the Trek Among the Stars and the adventures of Agent 007. I hope in the future our fans will actually interact with us, like, share, and subscribe, and maybe even drop a comment on something Nerdaties. Something on one of our media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. It's because of you we do this. It's because of you I am doing this. Say hello sometime. Let us know that you like what we do. So now that you know all this, it's with a heavy heart that this is my last mention of James Bond and Star Trek until it is deemed that I can speak of it again.